feels like it's a family gathering, you know? People that know each other, but more importantly want to do good in the world and are so thrilled to join forces.
We are many tonight, but there are many more online. Ending this discussion, this conversation about an important topic, which is carbon market, but we will discuss it's more than about carbon market, carbon credits. The real topic of tonight is not just the rules, the regulation, the standards, the certification. It's the interrelationship between humankind and nature. What we mean by the expression of nature-based solution is a bit misleading. Of course, nature-based solutions are based on nature, but in fact they are implemented by human beings. So, if we don't look at humans, who are the closest to nature, the one whose lives depend on nature, on soil, on water, on climate, do we think we can succeed on nature-based solutions? There are 600 million farms in the world. 90% of those farms are family farms. Not all of them are small farms. But small farms, the definition of FAO of small farms is below 2 hectares, produce 1/3 of the world food needs. So it's not negligible, it's not marginal. Investment must benefit field action rather than remunerate an army of intermediaries. The increased complexity is a direct trade-off with impact. It is done for the sake of integrity. We can understand that. But integrity without pragmatism risks becoming integrity without impact. We should remember that complexity causes hesitation, delays, and slowdowns, resulting in less sequestration, less resilience gains, and less community benefits. Yet, climate change allows us no time to wait. We urge the ecosystem of VCM to prioritize pragmatism over perfection. Again, carbon finance is a mean, not an end.
Was created beyond carbon. I know the investors are having a happy face because we know the carbon, the returns that the project gives, but it's not only carbon. When you create the bioshield, immediately you create and restore the life and the livelihood of these 5 million people because they are dependent on the nature and the natural resources.
If you are looking for changing the behavior, if you want to be transformative, if you want to get impact beyond the results of the project, you have to be involved in the long term. And I joined Livelihood just 18 months ago, and it's part of my motivation. To be in project when you know that you will be supporting the project for 10, 20 years or even more. I mean, if you are planting a tree, you know that you cannot leave the field after 2 years. You have to be there because we are looking for carbon. I know carbon, it's a mean, not an end, but we need the carbon to fund the project.
Every time I visited these projects, none of them on the ground ever talk about carbon. None of them. Carbon is just a background financing mechanism, a catalytic finance that enables this long-term transformational change on the ground. Gold standard's been not so easy standard to work with for more than 2 decades, but we haven't changed the way we work. We've been improving the way we work, but we're not changing course in terms of our basic principles of being science-based, inclusive in consulting with broader audience, not just the experts in governance, but opening up for public consultation, getting feedback from all of you, recently more real time, and also making sure that these can deliver impact just beyond, not just carbon, but beyond carbon. So I do think it's quite important lesson for us as a standard, reflecting on Bernard's earlier remarks, is how do we become more inclusive, and how do we not marginalize the smallholders and marginal communities or most vulnerable communities that are most affected by climate, by not overcomplicating things, and we are a slight culprit to that, but also making sure that there is confidence that buyers can depend on through that certification process, so that the supply side meets the demand and continues to grow and scale.
Field is king. Maybe point number 2, diversity is also so important. And when I mean diversity, it's not only diversity in the projects, which are kind of a risk-based approach for this kind of VCM and project, but it's also in the way we look at the project. And in livelihoods, we have managed to have around the table more than 15 different companies that allow us to take investment and decision for the next 20 years.
How do you manage that?
Discussion, open-minded, a charter which aligns us on the major issues, goodwill of everyone. And I think that able to manage people that goes together very well for 20 years, that's an important point, and that's a key point of success. And then going back to our project, what does it happen? It happened because we understand and we agree with the sense of purpose which is on the table. The sense of purpose, meaning that why are we doing that? We are doing that for people, we are doing that for the planet, and in the end also for carbon. But carbon is just a result of a work well done for people and planet.
So what I think is that along with the climate, as Maggie also said, the scientific part of it is very important, wherein biodiversity, it's generating huge biodiversity. Fishes are coming, crabs, 50 crab collectors were there, now 550 crab collectors are there. Right. Tourism is coming because of the birds are coming. So much of biodiversity, if we are not able to translate the climate benefits, the carbon finance, what has created into all layers of the society, we will not be able to doing justice, to inclusive, as the call was, to be inclusive. So we have to include, I personally think, coming from a conservation background, to have the biodiversity also linked very strongly, but not in like a checklist tick modes, but to really involve the local people.
Especially the youth.
Yes.
The voluntary carbon market in particular is created to generate funding and financing to address these issues. So this is the moment, as Bernard laid out, I thought so brilliantly in the paper, to really look at that ecosystem and that mechanism to make sure that it's working as the tool to drive funding and not simply getting us all, sort of stuck on the verification and the challenge that you're dealing with. Nicole, you all are trying to figure out how to balance, integrity versus inclusion. I mean, ultimately, we are all dealing with carbon because it is a threat to our planet. It's a threat to people.
The role of agriculture is not only to feed the population, obviously, but it's also to manage landscapes, to be the guardian of our natural capital. We mentioned already the impact of biodiversity, but it's the same on water, it's the same on many other aspects. And I think that it's also a way to reassert the fact that agriculture is bringing some solutions to the climate crisis, which are valid for a while, which has very positive track records.
To be pragmatic with principles. And I think that's very important.
Are we speaking about just transition? Because it's not possible to organize a transition if we don't take into account the people, especially the poor people.
First, let's all recognize the actual impact of nature-based solutions. We are in a world where technology is really driving the discussion, where projects are really at the pilot scale so far. Nature-based solutions are proven for years, and they are really impacting people's lives and preserving ecosystems locally. So we are really developing people's resilience.
So I think I'll speak from a government perspective here. The only thing that we can do is basically just have clear rules and regulations, like frame exactly what you're walking into as an investor. And that's what we've tried to do in Rwanda, where we have a national carbon market framework. So that already brings a level of trust in what we're trying to do. And then it's also a part where we need to be clear with investors in terms of where are you going to have the most impact. So we created an investment framework at a national level, looking at where you can have the most impact if you're trying to invest in a nature-based solution project.
Don't have to organize an opposition between farmers, small project, and measurement, integrity, and so on. Because that is a mistake. We could have small project with right level of integrity.
I really fundamentally believe that the best technology we have in hand is nature. That if we are really serious, we need to consider nature and the people who are actually stewarding the nature seriously. Because that's the only way we can protect our lifeline for the next generations. If we want integrity to deliver impact, we must keep the system in motion. And that's key. That means aligning rules with reality, ensuring permanence is measured not in centuries of theory, but in the lifetimes of farmers. The real success of this market will not be in the tons it counts, but in the trust it builds, not in the credit it trades, but in the communities it strengthens. This is how we turn a mechanism into a movement. Because integrity is our compass, inclusion our path, then impact will be our destination. Thank you very much, and let's keep the system moving.